Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, at whatever time you'll be watching this beautiful, excellent, amazing, awesome, fantastic video. This is Koa Mvolule Simon, your wonderful leadership lecturer, and today I'm going to be taking you through an amazing lesson. We are doing revisions as usual, and we are looking at a question which was brought in May 2022 in the Nmcz exams, and it's about a wonderful topic that you are going to love so much. And it's about a topic called delegation, which is one of the most important topics you must know, because it is one of the characteristics of an effective leader. So you must know what delegation is all about and what you are supposed to do when it comes to delegation. Okay, so we are going to look at this question, and let me just read it for you. We are saying, the nursing and midwifery fraternity is tasked with the responsibility of providing continuous nursing services to the public, since health is important to national development. Considering multiple tasks that nurses do, delegation allows for smooth running of the nursing services. So this statement is what we call a stem. And you know that if we look at trees, a tree cannot survive without stems. Why? Because it is the stem that holds that particular tree together. Why did I give an example of a tree? This particular stem is like that tree. Do not ignore this stem. I know sometimes you might feel lazy. Guys, just you and me now. I know I've been a student also. I'm still a student. Yeah, whereby, you look at a question, you look at the stem of the question, and you are like, wow, 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 this is very big. Yeah, I remember when I was doing my master's, my first master's degree, that was what was actually happening. When you find a long question, you might be tempted not to read the whole lot of it. But I want to assure you that you must read the whole lot of the stem, so that you get the whole idea of the answers that they want to give you. In leadership, the stem is the one which holds the questions. Or rather, the stem is the one which holds the answers. It has all the answers that you need. So the first one, A1, which is the question, is saying define delegation. A2 is saying state 5 things that the nurse in charge should consider when drawing up a ward timetable, 10%. B is saying state 5 advantages of delegation, 20%. C is saying describe 5 barriers of delegation, 25%. And then D, which is my favorite, is saying state what decision making is and describe the decision making process. So I want you to follow the way I am going to be explaining these things. Please get a book, get a pen, sit quietly, make sure there is no noise where you are, so that you may listen to the voice of passing, to the voice of greatness, the voice that will help you to pass at first attempt. And if you have attempted the exam before, this is going to be your last attempt. Beautiful, excellent, awesome, amazing, fantastic. So we are starting with the first question, which is A1, which is saying define delegation, and it is 5%. So we are saying delegation is the assignment of formal authority and responsibility to another person for carrying out specific activities. For example, when a nurse in charge assigns one of the nurses to attend a departmental, or to attend a meeting on behalf of her, as she does other things. Or you can say, for example, when a nurse in charge assigns one of the nurses to attend a workshop on her behalf. All those are examples of delegation. So I will not forget to keep on reminding you that one of the hints, the best hints in leadership is that as long as you are defining something, you need to put an example. Why? Because an example is the one that will enable you to get all the 5 marks. All right, so we go to A2, which is saying state 5 things that the nurse in charge should consider when drawing up a ward timetable, and that is 10%. So what you do here, you just state. I always say that in leadership, when a question comes, you must obey the marks than the question itself. So sometimes it can tell you explain, it can tell you describe, but if the marks are just 10%, don't bother yourself. Sometimes it can tell you to state or to outline, and the marks are 40. Don't pay attention to the question, pay attention to the number of marks, because they are the ones that determine how deep you should go in your explanation. So the first one, since this is just 10%, so we are just going to state realistically. So we are saying the first one is staffing levels. So the nurse in charge must consider the number of nurses that are available on the ward. So for example, if she has 10 nurses, she can't put all the 10 nurses in one shift. They need to be spread, okay, in several shifts. So staffing levels is what she should consider. Number 2, patient workload. So the in charge must consider the number of patients that are in the ward. So for example, if there are 20 patients in the ward, she can't put just one nurse to be in charge of them. Obviously, there will need to be at least 3, 4, 5, even 10 are good enough. Actually, the nurse patient ratio should actually be at least 1:2 or 1:1, which means one nurse should handle at least 2 patients. But here in Zambia, you find that it's 1:20. Okay, one nurse handling 20 patients. So you need to consider the patient workload also. And then number 3, consider the legal and organizational policy. So where does it come in? Legally, a person is not supposed to work for more than 40 hours in a week. So that's why you must make sure that someone does not report to work from Saturday to Saturday, Sunday to Sunday without resting. You must make sure that you alternate their shifts and they shouldn't work for more than 40 hours, because that is the legal right of any worker. Number 4 is staff preferences and requests. So sometimes a staff member can request that, please put me in night shift so that I can have nights off next week so that I do something else. That is also okay for you to grant their requests. Some of the nurses are going to come to you and say, me, I'll just be working at night. So you need to consider their requests, and if it is suitable, you can let this person work at the time which they want. Number 5, leave plans. So at work, there are 3 instances that happen. Number 1, there is always a nurse who is working on the ward. Number 2, there is always a nurse who is knocking off. And there is always a nurse who is on leave. Okay, so there's a nurse who is on the ward. There's also a nurse who is maybe on night shift or something, or night offs, and then there's also another nurse who is on leave. So you need to consider the leave plans. Who is scheduled for leave as you are making a ward timetable? Don't add a person whom you allowed to go for a leave. Again, you add them on the duty roster. Number 6, which is a bonus, is competencies. So you must consider the skills. So for example, you need to mix those newly recruited nurses and those who have been in service for a long time. Don't put novices alone and the skilled alone. You need to mix them up, which takes us to the seventh one, which is saying skill mix. Though for skill mix, we are talking more of the skills that a person has. So for example, there's always a nurse on the ward who is good at cannulation, another nurse who is good at suturing, another nurse who is good at maybe blood transfusion. So you must make sure that you mix up these people. Don't have only people who are good in cannulation when all the others who are good in other things, they are left out in that particular shift. You must mix the skills of your staff members. Beautiful, excellent, amazing, awesome, fantastic. If you have a question, please feel free to ask. So the hint is that always put an example when defining anything in leadership exams. Please don't forget that one. I told you even when I was defining what delegation is. This is a golden rule of leadership. B is saying state 5 advantages of delegation, 20%. So this one is very easy. And when you see a question which has 20%, it means that you need to write headings. Any question with 20 marks and above requires you to write headings, because when you write a heading, it's 2 marks. When you do explanation, at least 1 or 2 points, that's 2 marks again, plus an example, that's 1 mark. I read a book by Steve Harvey, which was called Think Like a Man, Act Like a Lady. And I want to tell you also, as my student, that you must think like a lecturer and act like a student. So you must know what happens for them when they are marking, what happens when lecturers are marking. And these are the tips that I'm telling you. That's why I'm even saying that don't share this with anyone else. It should just be between you and me. If they want to know, tell them that also go and get a video also. So number 1, it results in quick decisions. You see, when you delegate a task to an individual, it helps them to develop their decision-making skills, and also it helps also you to be able to select someone who is going to represent you. So for example, if this person who has been selected is found in a crisis where they need to make a decision, since you have given them the responsibility and the authority, they will not have to wait for you. They will just make the necessary decision. Number 2, it creates more time for strategic planning and policy making. So it gives time to the delegator or the leader to focus on their real job. So for example, a chief nursing officer, their job is to make strategic plans. An in charge, for example, on the ward, they need to make operational plans. So those plans cannot make themselves. That's why I say the worst in charges are those who spend their time 6 to 6 working in the ward. There is a lot of work in the office that can be done, ordering materials, making sure everyone is working, providing supervision and leadership. That takes a lot of work. So when you delegate a task which is not so important to you, it helps you to focus on the most important tasks. Number 3, delegation is a motivational factor. Now this one, this one is a fact, because imagine if they tell you, you are the one who is going to do this. There is a way that it motivates you to do better, to feel special, because you are selected. It's like the McClelland theory of motivation, which says there are 3 sources of motivation, which is a need for achievement, a need for power, and a need for affiliation. So when a task is delegated to you, it makes you feel a sense of achievement, which ends up motivating you. Number 4 is that it is a training ground for executive ability. Yeah, so this helps you to train others to succeed you, or when you come out of that position, at least you have a successor. People have an idea of what to do even after you leave that particular position. Number 5, it promotes teamwork. Why? Because when you delegate a task, it shows that you trust your team members that they are capable of doing what you can do. So it promotes teamwork. Number 6, which is a bonus, it helps to identify strengths and weaknesses. When you tell someone to do something, it helps you to identify what they are capable of and also to identify their training needs. That's why delegation is very important. Okay, so this is a work that I've done called The Master Key to Nursing Exams. It's a very wonderful book which explains how to answer essay questions in Nmcz exams. We've put all the courses there: Mcz, PEDS, IRH, mental health, and leadership also. You can get it at 150 kwacha or $25. You can contact me on WhatsApp using 0973643182. All right, so C is saying describe 5 barriers to delegation. So the first barrier to delegation is lack of trust in subordinates, especially charismatic leaders. They find it hard to delegate tasks because almost everything is dependent on them. So usually when you lack trust in your subordinates, you won't give them tasks to do. Number 2, fear of losing control. So someone will be scared that when I give it to someone, I may lose the executive ability of making decisions, which is true to some point. That's why it's not everything that you can delegate to someone. For example, you can't delegate to someone so that they discipline one of the workers, their colleagues. That is not appropriate. You can't delegate a task such as firing someone. Those are crucial decisions that must be made by the ultimate leader. Number 3, there is poor communication. So poor communication is a barrier because if you delegate a task and you don't give clear and simple and straightforward information, someone will not be able to follow it. Number 4, lack of time. And this lack of time is a barrier because maybe you are unable to train this one to know what they are supposed to do. And that becomes a barrier. Number 5 is fear of being outperformed. So some leaders fear that, if I give this one, what if they do a better job than I? Yeah, so that one also becomes a barrier. As a result, a manager will avoid delegating tasks because they are insecure that you outperform them. Number 6, which is a bonus, is inadequate training of subordinates. And also number 7, rejection from employees. Some of the managers fear that this particular employee may just refuse to do the work. Hence, they withhold themselves from delegating. All right. Hint number 2, we are saying always expect anything in leadership exams, even what you did not learn in class. This is very important because in leadership, Nmcz wants to teach you how to solve problems. And you won't always know the problem which is going to come. And it starts from the exam. Even in the hospital, you can never know what emergency is coming. You always must be prepared. So even in the leadership exam, always be prepared. Always be prepared to answer questions that require you to apply, because sometimes they ask application questions. For example, in June 2025 for new curriculum, they asked a question about the Maslow's need theory, or the Maslow's hierarchy of need theory of motivation, where they said, how are you going to motivate? Explain 5 ways on how you are going to motivate your subordinates. It was 40%. And also explain 5 ways on how you are going to motivate your patients. It was 20%. So now, if you don't know how to apply that Maslow's hierarchy of needs theory of motivation, it becomes very hard. If you need a video on how to answer that particular question, please let me know in my inbox so that we can make arrangements. That video is also available. Okay. we go to the last question, which is saying, state what decision making is and describe the decision making process. So these are the questions that I call pregnant questions. You've seen this question has two questions in it. Number one, they want you to define decision making, and then you describe the decision making process. Okay, so we are defining decision making as a cognitive process that results in the selection of a course of action among several alternatives. For example, when a nurse chooses to give a patient pethidine instead of paracetamol because they are having severe pain. So that one becomes a what? A decision. They've made a decision according to the factors that exist. Okay, then you now go to the process which they want. So when you hear a question telling you to describe the decision-making process, any question which has process, steps, phases, stages, levels, it means that no swapping. You are not supposed to swap those answers. So when I tell you this is number one, that is number one. That's all. So number one, identify and diagnose problems. So you say that the leader, you say this is the first step in decision-making process where the leader clearly identifies opportunities or diagnoses the problem that requires a decision. This is done by identifying the source of the problem in order to solve it. For example, when there is a shortage of medication in the hospital. Number two, you go to number two, you write it as a heading, identifying objectives. So you're going to say this is the second step in decision-making process where the leader reflects on the results that the organization wants to attain. So these are targets or standards that this organization wants to attain. So for example, this organization would want to have enough medication for the patients. That is an objective. And also to make sure that all the wards are well stocked of medication. Listen to this example that I'm giving. It's called a recurring example, where you keep on using the same example on each point, but you build it as the process builds itself. So number three is generating alternatives. So you're going to say this is the third step in the process of decision making, where the leader comes up with several solutions that will help to achieve the objectives of the organization. So for example, the leader can say, we can apply for funding. Number two, we can make sure that we change suppliers. Number three, we can strengthen the logistics system. So those are alternatives. And then there's evaluating alternatives. This is now the level where now you review what you have decided. Is it going to solve the problem or not? That's what evaluating alternatives is. Number four, the act of choice. This is the fifth step in the decision-making process, where the leader or the manager makes the final choice. This is the most difficult phase because you have several alternatives and then you just have to choose one. It's the most difficult. Yeah, so this is where now the leader now chooses. Maybe they say, let's just go for requesting for funding from the Ministry of Health. So they've chosen that alternative. Number six is implementation or implementing. This is the sixth step in decision-making process, where now the leader, you see, implements or puts into action the decision that was made. For example, when the nurse in charge now or the chief nursing officer of the hospital applies for funding to Ministry of Health. Then last but not the least is monitoring and evaluation. So this is the final step in decision-making process, where the manager reviews whether the decision which was made was able to solve the problem or not. So, for example, after they applied for funding and the funding was given and they bought medication, now the ward and the hospital is well stocked. That means that the decision worked. Okay, but if they still have insufficient drugs, then the leader needs to go back to the first step to identify and diagnose problems until they find the actual solution of the problem that is at hand. This should tell you that as a leader, you will encounter problems. But when you encounter problems, always look for the solution. Matthew 7 verse 7 says, "Ask and it is given, seek and you shall find, knock and the door will be opened for you." So when you have a problem, look for the solution. Nothing more, nothing less. So this is where we end our class, but the hint number 3 is that studying is the greatest strategy of passing. Don't forget this one. Studying is the greatest strategy for passing. There is no other way for passing. You must study in order to pass. Okay, so I hope you are studying hard and you are putting in your best. That is the Core Leadership Pamphlet, Volume 1 at 100 kwacha. Then the Core Leadership Pamphlet, Volume 2, which has 500 multiple choice questions, which are answered from May 2021 up to June 2025. There are about 10 Nmcz papers in this particular pamphlet. It's at 150 kwacha or $25. Please, if you want these particular products, contact me using these particular contact details. Always remember to be the first to see the best in yourself, and wherever you go, always remember to radiate positivity and put your positivity in action. Thank you for watching. God bless you. I love you, and bye-bye.